While on my mission, a member in the ward told me about a favorite book called To Him That Believeth by Frederick and June Babbel. I read a missionary story in the book that was quite striking and really brought home the point that missionaries are representatives of the Lord and that they are known to Him. This is the story quoted from the book. A special vision occurred to Sister Rebecca Bean, who with her husband, Brother Willard Bean, served a mission in Palmyra, New York from 1915 to 1940. They were instrumental in the purchase by the church of the Hill Cumorah and its replanting of 65,000 trees. Everyone who came east wanted to see the Joseph Smith home in the Hill Cumorah, and they all stayed to visit from a few days to several weeks. Sister Bean was responsible for caring for these visitors as well as for her own family. The following is an account given by her at a 1964 Salt Lake City fireside. It was a hot summer day, and we had had a lot of visitors that day. It had been a hard day for me. I had a baby just a year old, and I carried my baby around on my arm most of the day to get the work done. It was too warm. Everything had gone against us. We had had lunch with our visitors, and we had supper at night, and I had put my children to bed. Dr. James E. Talmage was there and some missionaries, and we had really a wonderful evening talking together. They all seemed tired, and I took them upstairs and showed them where they could sleep, and then came down and thought, well, I'll pick up a few things and make things easier for in the morning. But I was so weary and so tired that I was crying as I went straightening things around a little. Everybody was in bed and asleep but me. I looked at the clock. It was 11 o'clock. I said I'd better call it a day. I went into my room, and it was peaceful and quiet. I got ready for bed, and I was crying a little. I said my prayers, and I got into bed, and I was crying on my pillow. And then this dream or vision came to me. I thought it was another day. It had been a wonderful morning. I prepared breakfast for my visitors, my children were happily playing around, and I had done my work and cared for the baby, and he was contented and happy. I prepared lunch, and I called my visitors to lunch, and we were all seated around the table, my little baby in the high chair. Everything was peaceful and wonderfully sweet. There was a knock at the front door, and it was a very handsome young man standing there. I just took it for granted that he was another new missionary come to see us, and I said, "You're here just in time for lunch. Come with me." As I walked through the little hall into the dining room, I noticed he laid some pamphlets down on the table there. I introduced him around, and then I said, "Now you sit right here by Dr. Talmage, and I'll set a place for you." I thought he was strange to all of us, and yet he and Dr. Talmage seemed happy to see each other, and they talked about such wonderful things while we were eating. Some of them we could hardly understand, but the spirit that was there in the meal was so peaceful and nice, and everyone seemed so happy to be together. After the meal was over, Dr. Talmage said to the missionaries, "Now let's go outside and just linger here and enjoy the spirit of this wonderful place, because we'll soon have to leave." I put my baby to bed, and the other little ones went out to play, and then I was alone with this young man. He thanked me for having him to dinner and told me how much it meant for him to be there. And he told me that he thought that the children were so sweet and well trained, and I felt happy about that. And then we walked into the hall together. He said, "I have far to go, so I must be on my way." Then I turned from him just a moment to pick up these little pamphlets that he had laid on the table, and when I turned back to him, it was the Savior who stood before me, and he was in his glory. And I could not tell you the love and the sweetness that he had in his face and in his eyes. Lovingly, he laid his hands on my shoulders, and he looked down into my face with the kindest face that I had ever seen. And this is what he said to me, "Sister Bean, this day hasn't been too hard for you, has it?" And I said, "Oh no, I've been so happy in my work, and everything has gone on so well." Then he said, "I promise you, if you'll go about your work as you have done it this day, you will be equal to it. Oh, remember these missionaries represent me on this earth, and all that you can do unto them, you do unto me." And then I remember I was crying as we walked through the hall onto the porch, and he repeated the same thing. "These missionaries represent me on earth, and all that you do unto them, you do unto me." And then he started upwards. The roof of the porch was no obstruction for him to go through, nor for me to see through. He went upward and upward and upward, and I wondered and wondered how I could see him so far away. And then all at once he disappeared, and I was crying on my pillow like I was when I went to bed. I bear humble testimony to you that never again was there any frustration in my soul. Never again did too many missionaries come that I couldn't find beds for them to sleep or food enough to give them. And the great love I had for the missionaries even then became greater after what the Savior had said to me. And how I wish that every missionary that went out in the world could feel that his love and his guidance is only a prayer away. They teach his gospel and how much they mean to him.
On the day of the Savior's resurrection, 2 disciples traveled to a village called Emmaus. Unrecognized, the risen Lord joined them on the journey. As they traveled, he taught them from the Scriptures. When they reached their destination, they invited him to dine with them. And it came to pass, as he sat at meat with them, he took bread and blessed it and brake and gave to them. And their eyes were opened, and they knew him, and he vanished out of their sight. And they said one to another, "Did not our heart burn within us while he talked with us by the way, and while he opened to us the Scriptures?" And they rose up the same hour and returned to Jerusalem and found the 11 apostles gathered together. And then they testified to the apostles that the Lord is risen indeed,